Paris is having an Indian summer, and it's a beautiful evening on the 13th of November 2015. In the Bataclan, a well-known music venue, Eagles of Death Metal are playing.
Ladies, how are you doing tonight?
This is rock music on the move.
The concert kicked off with guitarist Dave Catchin, who's playing ripped through the room, and the crowd went wild.
But David was in the wrong place at the wrong time. 3 terrorists were to turn this party into carnage.
We started to hear screams from the floor, and there was a sort of wave, like dominoes falling. Everyone was on the floor.
There were 1,500 people crammed into the venue, on the ground floor and in the balcony. For these spectators, the Bataclan was to turn into a giant trap from which they had to escape at all costs.
I saw a crowd actually leaving the Bataclan, and then I heard shots.
Whereas some people managed to escape, for dozens of others, it was too late. Ordinary people were besieged by extraordinary events. For them, this was the beginning of a fight for life. David was one of those people. He lived 3 hours of hell here, held hostage in a corridor.
So this terrorist is aiming at me saying, "Don't play the hero, I just killed 100 people, one more won't make any difference."
Sébastien was on the ground floor. While looking for an exit, he ended up hanging in mid-air when he heard a woman calling out. I was hanging higher up than she was. She was lower down, hanging onto the window ledge. Sébastien made a heroic choice, braving all danger. There was really no other choice but to pull her back up into the Bataclan. Nicolas and Emilie, a young couple in love, tried to get onto the roof to hide, but they ended up stuck in a dressing room.
There were 20 or 30 of us crammed together in this little room.
And I thought, I have to see my children again. I'm afraid never to see them again. They can't be orphaned. It's unthinkable.
Nicolas, Stéphane, Arthur, Emilie, Victor, Marie, Sébastien, and David all saw their destinies turned upside down on November the 13th, 2015.
I actually realized that I was trapped. I was their hostage.
Survivors of the Bataclan recount the choices they made that saved their lives. These are their stories.
It's Friday the 13th of November 2015, and the news is read to you by Bernadette Chaminez. Hello, Bernadette. It was Friday the 13th, and I was to meet my friend Guillaume, who had invited me in front of the Bataclan at 6:30. Before leaving home, my father stopped me and asked me where I was going.
It was to be a lovely evening, starting with a drink between friends. But David couldn't stop thinking of his father's words of warning.
My father caught me by the arm and he hugged me tight to him and whispered in my ear, "You know, my son, nobody will steal your soul." And at the time I didn't really understand, but I accepted what he said and I left.
Emilie and Nicolas were then both 35. They loved the country and rock music, especially the real hard stuff. If a concert looked like a good one, they'd come into town for it.
We were just country bumpkins coming up to Paris, and the weather was good as well.
I don't like Paris. It's not a city I care for. But the sky was blue and...
We were driving along the quays in our car and we rolled down the windows as we passed the Eiffel Tower.
I took a picture of it. It was to be a beautiful romantic evening for us.
40-year-old Marie, Parisian to the core, is a rock fan, a real groupie.
My motto every day is, are you ready to rock? Really.
It looks like a Chinese pagoda, but the Bataclan is the hangout for free Paris and a temple of rock and roll. There's a bar on the ground floor and a mosh pit where you can dance facing the band. Upstairs, there are balconies where quieter audience members can listen to the music seated on red velvet chairs. Hot and steamy, red hot and ecstatic, the Bataclan concert hall can hold up to 1,500 people.
So we went into the Bataclan and felt like having a beer, so we got our drinks first and then had to decide where to go. Guillaume said to me, let's be like a couple of old men and go and sit up in the balcony. I want to have fun. I know the concert's going to be super good, so I want to be in the mosh pit, I want to jump about, I want to be in the front row, I want to groove.
I knew Nicolas wanted to be in the pit, but I didn't feel like going there. I was pretty tired, and I said, I'd like to go sit somewhere.
I thought, I'll have a beer, a big one, a pint. Then I'll go and find a spot near the stage and I'll just stay put.
In the Bataclan, the sound is best in the pit, so that's where you go. I took my beer and I went to stand there for the first set.
Arthur and Sébastien are real rock music fans, so they went to the mosh pit. They don't know it, but they'd made the worst possible choice, a deadly one.
She says to me, no, I want to go to the balcony. So when it's like that, husband follows his wife. Never disagree with your wife. So we got upstairs and went to the balcony.
We went upstairs, and as I'm right-handed, I always go right. So we did, and that's how we ended up on the right. I went to the balcony. I'm only 1.56 meters tall, so I never go to the pit. I never go to the pit, always to the balcony.
The hall's jam-packed.
David, Marie, Victor, Stéphane, Nicolas and Emilie went for a good view and the comfort of the seats in the balcony upstairs. It was a choice that saved their lives.
Just before the Eagles come on stage, I turn my head. I'm actually sussing out the audience a bit. So I turn my head to the right, and I see a young man who is clearly rolling a joint, which is really not a...
Everything's very quiet, so I think I'll just take this time to roll a little spliff. I like to smoke some when the concert's over. By spliff, I mean a joint, and a joint's good fun, a good laugh.
This is the first time Victor has agreed to talk about that night. It's like a deferred therapy, 5 years after the tragedy. A waiter in a restaurant, Victor was just 23 years old at the time.
So, all right, a bit high, our beers in hand, we're ready for a great concert.
The atmosphere was pretty electric. The audience was ready to rock.
Everybody's dancing. In the mosh pit, people are jostling each other a bit. It was one of the best concerts I've been to in a long, long time. One of the best concerts ever, maybe.
It starts off really well, yeah. Yeah, I'm practically dancing in my seat. I may well be seated, but I'm never still.
We were sitting in the front row of the balcony with the guardrail in front of us, 50 centimetres away. And I'm in my seat going like this.
He's going to hit his head on the rail, so I tell him, be careful. You're going to hit your head, you're going to hurt yourself.
During the first 4 songs, I kept thinking of my father, and his words sort of come back to me. And as I do at every concert, I send him a video. It's a tradition we have because he's the one who introduced me to rock music. And that's when I get a series of messages from him saying, son, watch out, shoot out in Paris. The president's left the Stade de France. So I see these messages and I'm shocked. And at the same time I say, this is strange. I didn't really understand.
Carried away by the concert, David's living in a bubble of his own. What he doesn't understand is that his father is sending messages to warn him that terror and death are stalking Paris. It all started at approximately 8:50 p.m. when a Renault Clio dropped off Bilal Hadfi and 2 Iraqians, all 20 years old and wearing explosive belts, in the area surrounding the national stadium, Le Stade de France. At 9:16 p.m, the first suicide bomber blew himself up in front of Gate D, killing a passer-by, the first victim in a night of horror. And so began the sinister countdown that was inexorably set in motion. At 9:24 p.m., men armed with Kalashnikovs get out of a black Seat Leon. Within 2 minutes, 100 bullets have shattered the terraces of the Carillon and the Petit Cambodge. The death toll was 15, with 10 wounded in critical condition. The terrorists next opened fire at 9:26 at La Bonne Bière bar, killing 5 people instantly, leaving 8 others grievously wounded. The Seat continues its murderous run, and at 9:36 p.m., Abel Hamid Abaoud, Brahim Abel Slam, and Shakib Akroum stop in front of the Belle Équipe restaurant, where they kill 19 people. And then, at 9:40 p.m., suicide bomber Brahim Abdel Slam triggers his explosive belt inside the Café Le Comptoir Voltaire. 15 people were injured in the explosion. At the same time, in the Bataclan, Eagles of Death Metal were starting their first set. Guitars wailed deafeningly, and no one was aware of the danger. It was to be a time for music and for fun. The concert had got off to the best possible start. Didi, head of security, was enjoying the mild Indian summer evening in the concert hall entrance, when suddenly everything went wrong.
Tout d'un coup, j'entends des tirs, tout simplement. Je regarde à travers.
All of a sudden, I heard shots, simple as that.
La vitre du Bataclan Café qui est collée.
I looked through the window of the Bataclan Café, which is part of the Bataclan building,
Je vois les terroristes.
and I see 3 terrorists shooting at the cafe terrace,
Sur la terrasse du Bataclan Café.
making their way rapidly towards the entrance of the Bataclan.
Sur l'entrée du Bataclan.
It's 9:47 p.m. Kalashnikovs in hand, Ismail Mostefai, Sami Amimour, and Foued Maramad start firing as they advance towards the entrance of the Bataclan. 3 people were killed. In spite of the danger, Didi, the head of security, decided to go back into the hall to warn the public.
They started playing a song I really like. It's one of my favourites of the band. It's called Kiss the Devil. It has a strong drum beat. It's a simple composition, but it's really good rock.
The killers were actually in the hall, preparing for the massacre. No one understood this. No one except Didi.
The song was just finishing, and just as those last guitar chords sounded, we started to hear what at first we took for cracklings or firecrackers, and immediately everyone froze.
Now, over the song, I heard tack, 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 completely out of rhythm, and the sound was actually covering the sound of the music.
I started to hear shots, and I understood immediately what it was, because I play a lot of video games, and I can instantly recognise the sound of a kalash. My first thought was, shit, some asshole has nothing better to do than throw firecrackers in a concert hall mosh pit.
I see the band, and I see them leaving the stage. I see the band panicking, so potentially there could be real danger.
And then we heard these dull thudding noises coming in bursts. They went bam, 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 and they went on and on. Jesse Hughes was the first to run off. We start to hear screaming in the mosh pit, and to see this sort of wave like dominoes. Everyone in the pit is on the floor. And then we begin to understand that what was happening down there wasn't firecrackers.
So shots are being fired. I evacuated the first people through the emergency exits in the toilets. And then I went back inside to try and do the same thing through the exits on the left, facing the stage in front of you. The terrorists were standing near the bar and firing towards the stage. Didi, the security manager, had opened the first emergency exit that gives onto the Saint-Pierre-Amelot passageway. It was a crucial decision that saved the lives of hundreds of spectators. Heeding only his own courage, Didi went back into the hell pit to try to open up the other doors. When I went back into the room, I was trapped. I was, so to speak, in the lion's mouth, stuck inside. The terrorists were beside the bar, practically, at least in the beginning. And I had to jump into the pit. And that's where I ended up with a good many members of the audience.
The noise of the firing intensified. The bursts seemed more and more frequent. There must have been several different gunmen. That's one of the things I distinctly remember thinking. The thing that got us most was the sound, the noise of the Kalashnikovs, the pam, 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 over and over. And the concert hall amplified it. The noise was amplified. It became a really heavy sound, really thudded. It's a vile sound, horrible. That's what haunts me still, that sound. It's the sound of hell.
They started reloading their weapons and talking amongst themselves, and I thought maybe this was the only time I could still do something. And so, right away, I stood up, and I had those around me stand up too, and I screamed, "Out! Out, 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 everyone that way!" So, while the gunmen were loading their weapons, Didi opened the doors in the back and took out another 100 people. Shooting resumed. People were stepping on each other, pushing. Some fell. Arthur managed to escape from the chaos.
By now, I'm sure I'm walking on dead people, because some of the bodies were in extremely strange positions on the stairs, at the bottom of the stairs. I go out into the street.
It was a race for life. The wounded and the unharmed all pushed each other, trying to escape. An escape under gunfire filmed from his window by a neighbor. The trap was closing in. It was too late to come back down from the balconies. Death was waiting at the bottom of the stairs. So Nicolas and Emilie crawled around, looking for a place to hide, to take shelter.
From the moment that we were on the ground, pressed against the guardrail, the only thing in my head was, survive. To survive, we had to move, because they're shooting behind us, and everyone's crawling towards the back of the room, towards the back of the hall, towards the back of the balcony, and we just followed along.
We literally crawled. We got down on all fours and we did what we could to avoid being seen. We were so afraid of showing ourselves, of being noticed. And so we moved along in single file, really up against the wall, and we went forward, sometimes stopping because of the people. Nicolas and I were together. We stayed together. There was no way we were going to separate.
We ended up in a little room, a sort of dressing room that must have been 15 to 20 meters squared. We were crammed together in that little room. There were 30, maybe 40 of us in there.
And then I thought, I have to see my children. I was afraid of not seeing them. I want to see my children. They can't be orphaned. It's unthinkable.
Marie, Stéphane and Victor were terrified and had stayed on the balcony. For them it was too late. The trap had closed. Death was waiting for them, dressed in tracksuits and carrying Kalashnikovs.
I thought to myself, now we're stuck here. We're stuck. Those guys are coming up. We're stuck on the balcony. We're trapped. We had to duck down out of sight to be as invisible as possible.
Looking around me, I saw this man coming up the stairs, and he was armed. If he'd come to kill us, it was death. So we were sat down. We stayed, sat. I only hoped he wouldn't turn around.
I see this young guy in a black tracksuit coming up the stairs. And he has a machine gun. He's not looking my way, so he doesn't see me.
He turned round and pointed his gun at us. Pointed for a good second, even 2 seconds, which seemed very, very long. Then he stopped, lowered his gun and said, "Come."
At that precise moment, Nicolas and Emilie were hiding in the little room. Victor, Stéphane and Marie had been taken hostage by 2 of the terrorists. Sébastien and David, trying to escape through the windows, were hanging in mid-air.
I see the window and I think that's the only place I can go. And I think maybe I'll get up on the roof.
David has never forgotten that night he had dreamed of becoming a bird so as to fly away through the window, to fly far away from that deathly cage.
I tried to get up at arm's length. I tried to get up, but I can't do it. So I'm stuck there, and there's this guy who joins me, Sébastien.
David says to me, "Don't worry." He asks me my first name, and he says, "Don't worry, Seb, when we get out of this, we'll have a beer together. Everything will be all right."
And just as I'm saying this, I look down and I see a crowd of people coming out of the Bataclan. And then I hear gunfire. We can hear a woman crying out. She's below us, and she implores us to help her because she's pregnant. She can't hold on any longer. She's at the edge of the window, just below us, in fact.
At that point, I was hanging on higher up than she was, in the air vents close to the roof, and she's lower down on the windowsill. When she says she's going to let go, that she doesn't want to die, when I see her fingers slipping off the window ledge, I see no other solution than to pull her back into the Bataclan. I hold out my right arm to her, and at the same time, I'm thinking she's going to pull my arm off, because I was her only support. So I guess she's got a 50-50 chance of slipping here, because I've never done this before. I'm not a lifeguard, and she ends up holding on, one hand on my biceps and one on my wrist. I couldn't believe how strong she was to keep it up like that. And that's how I saved this woman, who today is a good friend, a very, very good friend, a sort of soul sister, in fact.
And I tell myself, okay, if this is the end, I want to reincarnate. I want to become an eagle, or why not a hawk, something that flies, something that's free, so I could fly away from here.
À côté de moi, j'ai David qui, lui, reste sur le mur.
Next to me, there's David, who's still standing on the wall and thinking maybe he'll sprout wings and fly away. And that's when Ismail Mostefai shows up at the window that we're at and says, "Stop acting like fools, get down from there and do as you're told."
And he says to me, "Don't play the hero. I just killed 100 people. One more won't make any difference." And I think, okay. And I go through the door, turn around and sit down with the others.
Back up on the balcony, David, Sébastien, Victor, Stéphane and Marie come face to face with 2 of the terrorists. The third is down below on the stage. Emilie and Nicolas hope that they're safe now, hidden in their dressing room.
We're on suspended sentence in this room. I'm very much aware of that. You can hear what's going on behind the door. You can hear they're still shooting. You can hear shouting. So this isn't hell in here, it's purgatory.
There are dozens of us in this room. Literally dozens of us. And we're on top of each other. Nicolas tells me, "Look, they're getting out over there."
I see a hole in the false ceiling, a beautiful black hole, a little like in cartoons. And people are standing on the toilet, giving each other a leg up and climbing into the hole. At this point, I don't care what's on the other side, I just want to get out that hole.
Like everyone else, I get up on the toilet, on the cistern. I try, I can't do it. After 2 tries, I stop and I say, right, enough's enough. I'm going to kill us all. I'm slowing us down. It's all right, leave me here, it's all right.
I don't yell at her. I tell her, you can do it. And the guy next to us who helped her up starts encouraging her too. He says, no, you're going to make it. Don't worry, you can do it. And so we start again.
So now I break the tank when I stand on it. I flood everything.
After a while, I'm pushing her like this. And I end up with her foot in my face, pushing on my glasses. And I keep trying to push her. And then finally we do it. Lily gets through. She's through. She's made it. Relief.
We're still trapped, but at the same time we feel safer.
Obviously, we're under the roof. I don't see any way out around me. All I know is that we're probably in some sort of technical area under the roof.
You can hear everything that's going on below. There's nothing to stop the sound. You can hear the shooting. You can hear the screams. You can hear people in pain. You can hear people dying.